like that. Is that gonna work? I don't know. This is my first time trying this, so just giving it a shot. I got some breakfast toast here. Everything bagel style toast. Pretty good. I'm wondering how many people like to have their toast still be like you can bite into it and chew it without it being just like completely turning into dust. Or how many people like crunchy toast? I'm wondering, I'm curious about that. Because for me, toast is all about that perfectly, it's got to be cooked perfectly or toasted perfectly. I don't know if you technically cook toast or bread or whatever, but yeah, it needs to be soft still, in my opinion. And I like to cook my toast in the toaster oven, but I don't like actually put it into the toaster slots. I put it into Pyrex glass. I put a little bit of olive oil in it. So one side still has a little bit of oil and is soft when the other side is a little bit more toasty. I don't know if that's some Gordon Ramsay kind of stuff or if I'm just making it up, but it tastes legit. It's my favorite kind of way to make it. Yeah, I guess there's kind of an interesting analogy that I always think about with cooking and food. Whoa, I just realized the phone kind of took a little turn there. I always found this interesting analogy with food and cooking and art. And there's this debate about art and whether or not, I think I was kind of having this conversation yesterday about perfectionism, and I think a lot about this idea of the chef or like a cook, somebody that cooks professionally for a living because they have to prepare something that somebody else is going to eat and go into their body, and the food has to be good. It has to taste good. And there's a lineage, there's a history of people that have set standards in that field, in that industry, but also in that art. They set standards of what something, and I guess they're not necessarily setting the standards because it's kind of a relationship between the people that are eating the food and the people that are preparing the food. They're together kind of in a relationship creating the standards of what is good quality food, right? And ultimately the whole reason for this thought experiment to think about chefs and cooks and people that are preparing food for other people is if you're an artist and you're an artist that actually wants to share your work with other people, and that's a part of the art for you, is that connection, the human connection of your art being shared with someone else, and then they're taking their perspective on it and looking at it from their view. That's kind of where I'm trying to get at with this whole cook, chef, food analogy, because a lot of the times, like yesterday, I was talking about this idea of perfection. And, I guess a dish, in a sense, if we were going to cook for someone, does it have to be perfect to be good? Oh, just lost you again. Does it have to be perfect to be good? I don't think so. But I guess, what is the definition of the word perfect? Is perfect? I know I believe the Latin etymology for the word, or like where it comes from, the root of the word, it means to finish or to be finished. Could be wrong about that, but that's at least what I believe I've read. And so, in a certain sense, when something is perfect, that means it's finished, right? But the person that was using that definition, they might have been thinking of a very specific type of finished. Like, let's say that they meant like when you finish like a marble sculpture or something like that, then it's perfect. And obviously working on a marble sculpture probably took a lot of work. It wasn't something that you just did in 2 seconds. But also, like, if you think about some of the other type of art, like let's think of like a Japanese calligraphy art, where some of the strokes that are made, they happen really quickly, and they're it's very simple. It's black and white paper a lot of the times, or it's black ink on white paper. So it doesn't seem like it's a complex type of work, but at the same time, you could say that when the person that's composing the art and they make their quick brush strokes, that in a sense that type of work could be compared or comparable to, a sculpture that's been finished, a marble sculpture. I hope that makes sense. So I guess in a sense you could say, okay, that's perfect. That's been perfected because it's finished. And I need to figure out a better system for how to control the phone here because it's not working. Yeah, so let's have another bite of this bread here. So I guess thinking about the definition of the word, what it means. Does kind of change your perspective of when something is perfect. I guess in a sense, it's perfect when you say it is, because you're the one that's finishing it. You're the artist. You're the one doing the work, putting in the work to create the artwork. I'm just realizing that I turned into the wrong place. So, well, I guess I go back to that idea of the relationship where there's the relationship of art with the artist and the person that's viewing the art, the viewer, the observer. So in a sense, I guess you both kind of mutually agree when it's finished or when it's perfect. And you can see that, like, for example, like let's say you were at a restaurant and somebody went to bring you a dish. And in a sense, from me, my perspective, that dish is comparable with a piece of art. Like that's similar to somebody saying, like, I'm a musician and I'm serving up my music to a listener. That's the same thing as serving up a dish. So when we're serving up that dish and the person that's receiving it goes to taste it and they realize maybe there's not enough salt, maybe there's too much salt, or something that's not finished, or something that's not perfect. And so they send it back, and they request for something to be changed. And so I guess that's kind of the relationship between the artist and the art and the person that's taking the art in. And I think this is an important idea because a lot of the times when we think being an artist means that you have to be different, you know? You have to come up with something that's creative that no one else has ever thought of before. And maybe that's true in a sense, but also, what about taking something that's already been done before, like let's say a recipe, something that you already can follow, that you know is tried and true. It touches that emotional center in someone that allows them to experience the art in a certain way. So yeah, I think that's important because I'll give you an example. This one time I was at a potluck, and I was bringing a dish to the potluck, you know? And it had been the first time that I had ever cooked my own dish and brought it to a potluck. So I obviously wanted to know what people thought of the dish. I was making chicken noodle soup. And in the past, I had left some of the bones on the chicken in there because I thought that it added an extra flavor. But some of the people that were eating it didn't like the bones in there. And for me, it wasn't a big deal because I would just pick them out. But I listened to somebody that was obviously a little bit more seasoned at cooking, and they knew more than I did. And so it was important for me to listen to them and not try to be different for being different's sake, but to listen to people that I'm feeding, that I'm giving my art to, and hear their feedback on how I can create better. And I think that is an important concept, because we shouldn't always be stuck in our own way of thinking about things. We should actually listen to feedback. We should listen to other people that are more experienced in the art that we're also going in the same direction, because they can help us and guide us to create things that potentially have that better relationship with the person that is going to participate in, I want to say consuming it, because obviously you're consuming with something that you eat, but I don't want to use that word because it kind of sounds like it makes it not feel like, because it doesn't feel like art should be consumed, you know? It feels like art should be appreciated, but at the same time, in a sense, art is consumed. So it's I think from a certain type of perspective, it's all right to use that word. But yeah, hopefully that made sense. And yeah, sorry about the car and the driving situation, but that was fun to do. And yeah, I'm gonna have to figure out another way to set this camera up so that we can make more of these. All right, well, see you later.